When I thought I had found my happily ever after, life threw a twist I never saw coming. Just weeks before my wedding, my fiancé's mother crossed a boundary I could never forgive. What happened next? You won't believe how it all unfolded. Stay with me as I share my heartbreaking story of what was supposed to be the most memorable moment of my life, my wedding. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 27 years old, and for most of my life, I believed that love could overcome anything. I always thought family was sacred and that when you marry someone, you gain not just a partner but a whole new family who would welcome you with open arms. But I was wrong. So terribly wrong. This story isn't just about love, it's about betrayal, boundaries, and the harsh realization that sometimes the biggest villains wear the warmest smiles. Let me take you back to where it all started. I met Daniel 3 years ago. He was everything I ever wanted. Kind, attentive, driven. He worked as a financial consultant, and I was building my own career in interior design. We clicked instantly. We laughed, we traveled, we built dreams together. When he proposed on a quiet beach during our vacation, I cried tears of joy. I thought I was stepping into the most beautiful chapter of my life. What I didn't know was that I was also stepping into a nightmare I wasn't prepared for. Daniel's mother, Victoria, was complicated. When we first met, she was polite. Cold but polite. I could feel the distance in her eyes, the way she sized me up as if I was applying for a job, not marrying her son. I brushed it off thinking, she'll come around. But as time passed, it became clear that Victoria didn't see me as family. She saw me as competition. She would make small comments, nothing overt, but sharp enough to sting. "Oh, Emma, are you sure that's the dress you're wearing? It's a little ordinary, isn't it?" Daniel always dated girls who could cook like his grandmother. "You don't really seem like the kitchen type." I always smiled, always swallowed the discomfort, because I loved Daniel. And I told myself it's not worth fighting over. But Victoria wasn't just passively critical. She was obsessed with control. She wanted to be involved in every single wedding decision. The flowers, the menu, the guest list. She even tried to convince me to change the wedding venue because it was too modern for her taste. Still, I stayed patient. I tried to be understanding. After all, I was marrying Daniel, not his mother. Or so I thought. I found my dress 6 months before the wedding. It was everything I had dreamed of, an elegant, lace mermaid gown with delicate beading and a long train that made me feel like a queen. The moment I tried it on, I knew it was the one. My best friend Lily cried. The bridal consultant smiled in approval. It was perfect. I didn't tell Victoria immediately. Something told me to keep it to myself for a while. But eventually, during a family dinner, it came up. Victoria's response? A mermaid gown? I always imagined Daniel's bride in something more regal. You know, more like the gowns I used to wear in my pageant days. It was a subtle jab, but I let it slide. I had no idea how deep her obsession with my wedding would go. 3 weeks before the wedding, I had a dress fitting scheduled. It was supposed to be just me and Lily, but that morning Lily had an emergency at work and couldn't come. Daniel was out of town on a business trip, and my mom was sick, so I ended up going alone. When I arrived at the bridal boutique, the receptionist looked at me strangely. "Oh, you're back so soon," she said cheerfully. I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Your mother-in-law was just here. She said you asked her to come try the dress on your behalf." My heart dropped. I didn't ask her to do that." The receptionist's smile faltered. "Oh, well, she tried it on just an hour ago. She even asked to take a few photos." I felt the air leave my lungs. I rushed to the fitting room where the boutique staff had placed my gown. There it was. But something was wrong. The beading along the side seam was slightly stretched. A couple of stitches near the zipper looked loose. I felt sick. I immediately called Daniel. He sounded surprised. "Mom went to your fitting? Are you sure?" "I'm sure, Daniel. She tried on my wedding dress. Without my permission." He was silent for a few seconds. Maybe she just got excited. You know how she is. That was the first crack. The man I was going to marry was brushing this off like it was a silly mistake. I couldn't get the image out of my head. Victoria standing in front of the mirror wearing my dress. The one meant for one special moment. The one I had dreamt of since I was a little girl. Felt like a violation. But I wasn't ready for what came next. I asked the boutique staff if they had taken any photos, but they said Victoria requested to delete them after sending them to herself. I went home, furious and shaken. That night, I confronted Daniel in person. Do you not see how inappropriate this is? I pleaded. Your mother crossed a huge boundary. Daniel sighed. She didn't mean harm, Emma. Look, she sent me this. He showed me his phone. It was a photo of Victoria, posing in my dress, smiling smugly. The caption read, "Just making sure it's good enough for my son." That was the moment I realized she didn't respect me. Not as a person, not as her son's partner, not as family. But what made it worse? Daniel's refusal to see the problem. It's just a dress, Emma. Let it go. You're overreacting. Overreacting? To me, it wasn't just a dress. It was about respect. About boundaries. About the kind of marriage we were about to have. I tried to let it go, but things spiraled. A week later, Victoria started dropping more comments. At my bridal shower, well, I already know I look great in her dress. Let's see if she pulls it off as well. At a family gathering, back in my day, people knew how to honor traditions. Nowadays, girls think they can do whatever they want. I started hearing from mutual friends that Victoria was bragging about trying on the dress. She even told someone if Emma ever backs out, I could walk down the aisle myself. It was humiliating. But Daniel? He told me to stop making everything about his mother. The man I loved was failing to protect me. And I was starting to question everything. One evening, I went to Daniel's place to talk things through. Victoria was there. When she saw me, she smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, Emma, I've been meaning to tell you. You really should have gone for a ball gown. Mermaid cuts don't flatter everyone." I was done. I stood up and said, "You know what, Victoria? Maybe you should just marry Daniel yourself since you seem so obsessed with being the bride." The room fell silent. Victoria's face flushed. Daniel stood up angrily. "Emma, that's out of line." "No," I said firmly. "What's out of line is your mother trying on my wedding dress without my permission. What's out of line is you defending her instead of me." I took off my engagement ring and placed it on the table. I can't marry someone who doesn't have my back. I deserve better. I walked out. My heart was shattered, but my dignity was intact. The weeks that followed were painful. Daniel tried to contact me, but I didn't respond. A mutual friend told me that Victoria had been bragging so much about trying on the dress that it got back to some of Daniel's extended family, and they were disgusted by her behavior. Apparently, some relatives pulled out of the wedding in protest. Word spread in their social circles, and Victoria's reputation took a hit. But the final blow? Daniel's company offered him a long-term project abroad. He hesitated to accept because he didn't want to leave his mother alone. Turns out, his mother's need for control didn't stop with me. It bled into his career decisions, his social life, everything. I heard he eventually moved, and his relationship with his mother became strained. He realized, too late, that he had been trapped in her web. As for me, I rebuilt my life. I focused on my career, traveled, made new memories. And the dress? I sold it, because the dream attached to it was no longer mine. One day when I was at a cafe, I overheard a woman talking about her wedding plans. She said, "I found the perfect dress, and guess what? It's pre-loved. It has its own story." I smiled quietly to myself. Yes, it does. Sometimes karma doesn't need our help. It unfolds quietly, perfectly, in ways we could never plan. All we have to do is walk away. Don't go anywhere. Let's move straight into our next story. One that's even more shocking. It's time for the bride and groom's first dance. I turned to Daniel, heart pounding, hand reaching for his. My mother-in-law walked confidently to the center of the dance floor and extended her hand to Daniel. And to my absolute horror, he took it. I stood frozen as Daniel and his mother began to dance. I'm Ava Carter, 27 years old, and I thought I had found the love of my life in Daniel Morris. He was kind, smart, and supportive, or at least that's what I believed. But there was always her, Linda Morris, his mother, the woman who never quite approved of me, but wore the mask of civility with such precision that even I, at times, doubted my instincts. Linda was the kind of person who thrived on attention. She dominated every room she entered, spoke over others, and somehow always made everything about her. When Daniel and I got engaged, she acted thrilled, but subtly kept inserting herself into every wedding decision. And Daniel? He rarely noticed. Or worse, he noticed but always excused her. "She's just excited, babe. he would say, dismissing my concerns with a kiss on my forehead. You know she means well. No, she didn't. I realized that when we sat down to plan our first dance. Daniel and I had carefully chosen our song, Can't Help Falling in Love, the original Elvis version. It was special to us. It was playing in the coffee shop the day we met. We both agreed it was our song. It was going to be our moment. When we told Linda about it over dinner, I caught the flicker in her eyes. It was subtle, but it was there, an irritation, a silent protest. Oh, she said with a small smile. That's a lovely song. I used to dance to that with Daniel when he was little. I froze, but Daniel just laughed. Yeah, Mom and I used to dance to Elvis all the time. I shrugged it off at the time. It was fine. It didn't mean anything. Or so I thought. The wedding morning was a blur of nerves, makeup, and last-minute chaos. Linda, of course, was everywhere. She had somehow inserted herself into the bridal suite, nitpicking everything from the flowers to the bridesmaid's hair. Are you sure about these centerpieces, Ava? I think peonies would have looked so much more elegant. Oh, but it's your day, of course. She smiled sweetly. I kept my cool, brushing off each comment. I wouldn't let her ruin this for me. Daniel barely noticed the tension. He was too busy making sure everything else ran smoothly, or more accurately, making sure his mother was happy. The ceremony itself was beautiful. For those few moments, I truly believed we had made it. We had survived the storm. We had exchanged vows, our families cheered, and it finally felt like our day. But I should have known better. As the evening unfolded, I caught Linda's gaze several times. She floated around the reception, gracefully greeting guests, making subtle jabs at the decorations, and basking in the attention as if she were the bride. Then came the moment I had been waiting for, the first dance. Our DJ, Mark, called everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, please gather around. It's time for the bride and groom's first dance. The lights dimmed. The music started. Elvis's soft voice filled the room. Wise men say, only fools rush in. I turned to Daniel, heart pounding, hand reaching for his. But something happened. Linda Morris walked confidently to the center of the dance floor. In front of everyone. She extended her hand to Daniel. And to my absolute horror, he took it. I stood frozen as Daniel and his mother began to dance. Not a quick twirl. Not a brief, sentimental sway. A full dance. To our song. Our song. The guests began whispering, some visibly confused. My maid of honor, Jenna, looked at me in shock. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, that Daniel would realize what he was doing, that he would stop. But he didn't. He smiled, dancing with his mother, laughing as if they were reliving old memories. When the chorus hit, Linda's voice rose above the music. This was always our song, wasn't it, Danny? I could barely breathe. When the song ended, there wasn't a moment of apology, not even a glance toward me. Linda curtsied playfully. Sorry, Ava. Old habits. The DJ, visibly uncomfortable, announced the next event. I wanted to scream. To cry. To disappear. But I stayed. I walked over to Daniel, my voice trembling. That was our first dance. He shrugged, as if I was being unreasonable. You know how much this song means to Mom. Don't make a scene. It wasn't just the dance. It was what it represented. That I didn't matter. That his mother would always come first. The rest of the evening blurred into an endless loop of forced smiles and stifled tears. Guests came up to me in hushed tones. That was odd, wasn't it? Was that planned? Are you okay? Jenna didn't hold back. Ava, that was not okay. She knew. She knew that was your song. I knew it too. She had done it on purpose. The photographer showed me a picture later. Linda's smirk while she danced with Daniel, her eyes glancing toward me. She knew exactly what she was doing. When I confronted Daniel later in the bridal suite, he was defensive. She's my mother, Ava. She raised me. You can't just expect me to push her aside. I stared at him, my throat tight. I don't want to push her aside. I wanted us to have our moment. That was our first dance. She just got caught up in the moment. Why are you making this bigger than it is? Because it was bigger. It was about more than a dance. It was about where I stood in his life. And I realized I wasn't even second. I was somewhere further down the list. Linda knocked on the door then, acting as if nothing had happened. I just wanted to say goodbye, you two. Daniel, darling, don't forget brunch tomorrow. She didn't even address me. When she left, Daniel followed her, ignoring me calling his name. I went home that night alone. The wedding was supposed to end with us in each other's arms. Instead, I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, still in my wedding dress, staring at the bouquet in my lap. In the days that followed, I replayed everything. Every moment where Daniel chose her comfort over mine. Every instance where I allowed it. Friends urged me to fight for my marriage. But I realized something. I didn't want to fight to be a priority. I deserved to already be one. A week later, I met Daniel for coffee. He acted as if things were fine. He said we should move past the misunderstanding. That's when I took off my ring and placed it gently on the table. This isn't a misunderstanding, Daniel. This is a pattern. His face twisted in disbelief. You're throwing this away over a dance? I smiled sadly. No. I'm walking away because I don't want to spend my life fighting your mother for your attention. He didn't try to stop me. Because he never would have chosen me. I left that coffee shop with tears in my eyes, but also with a strange sense of freedom. And as I walked to my car, Can't Help Falling in Love played faintly from a street musician nearby. But this time I didn't feel the pull of the memory. That song didn't belong to us anymore. It belonged to a lesson I'll never forget. That some dances you walk away from are the ones that save you.